Aylin finds out that her billionaire ex-fiancé, Gunny Arat, is the art thief she has been chasing for a while. She plans to honey-trap him, but feelings threaten to get in the way. In Budapest, Gunny sneaks into an art gallery at night. His associate, Vera, distracts the guard while Gunny sets up dupe footage. He hacks the password and gains easy entry into the secure area. He looks around and takes out a painting from the frame. He places a stone on the frame and then leaves. Aylin and Ozan arrive at the museum in the morning as part of the art crime unit. A man from the museum was told to contact Aylin when he found the stone. In Istanbul, Aylin wonders why the same thief always steals the least valuable painting when he has access to the whole collection. Ozan doesn't know too much about art, but Aylin understands the stolen paintings still have great composition. She asks him to think of this case as a former narcotics officer. Ozan feels this situation is related to a murder investigation with no leads, but a connection with a new victim. Aylin is impressed since she realizes the paintings are connected. In Budapest, Gunny has a new plan. But his other associate, Omer, asks him to breathe a little and enjoy the moment. Aylin thinks their thief could be a romantic person, since all the artworks represent love. She needs a list of paintings about love. She can narrow it down further, because all paintings are undervalued and associated with the Fauvism movement. Aylin can tell the thief has a plan, but her plan is to put him behind bars. She finally narrows it down to 2 paintings. One is in a museum in New York, and the other is arriving in Istanbul. Interpol's chief thinks Aylin is just assuming things, but Aylin is sure the thief will target the painting arriving in Istanbul in 4 days. After a day of museum exhibition, it will be auctioned. So, Aylin thinks he will take action at the museum. She asks for a bigger team, but Chief wants her to take Ozan and feel grateful he is letting her work on her assumptions. 5 days later, Aylin and Ozan arrive at the Museum of Painting and Sculpture. Aylin knows it's a risk, but the thief will steal the painting publicly. They learn that it's hung in the main hall, and make their way towards it. They hear an alarm and realize they might be too late. They ask the museum officials to not let anyone out of the building. Ozan shows Aylin the missing painting, and she finds a man walking casually towards the door. She chases after him and fights the crowd to make her way out of the door. She holds the gun to the thief, but realizes it's her ex-fiancé, Gunny Arat. She remembers the time she heard the news about Gunny's disappearance. He's a billionaire, so the reporters started speculating he might be deceased. He drives away, but Aylin gets another flashback of the time he came back in the public eye. She found from the news again that he left to be alone. Aylin asks for footage of the theft, but the cameras were disabled at the time. She asks to see something from earlier that day, and notices Gunny. Chief doesn't believe that the billionaire can be their suspect. He can easily buy any art, and is a famous businessman. Aylin admits it sounds strange, but she's sure he's the thief. The chief refuses to take this forward if she has nothing more than a picture as proof. He also knows Aylin has a history with him, since they did a background check before they invited her to Interpol. He claims he didn't care why she asked to be transferred from Paris. Aylin assures him her past won't impact the case. Ozan wonders if Aylin became a police officer because of Gunny, and she asks him to close the door. She knows he must have heard about her past too, and wants to clarify things. She claims she went to Paris to stay with her mother after Gunny disappeared. Interpol then hired her as a consultant to improve their art crime unit. When she realized she enjoyed it, she joined the academy to be an officer. She claims she doesn't care about Gunny anymore, and it's all in the past. Ozan believes her, but he needs her to be sure Gunny is the thief. Aylin is positive, and she plans to casually run into him so she can get closer. Ozan knows that's very risky, but Gunny knew Aylin as a history student, and she thinks he wouldn't suspect she's with the Interpol. She is also sure Gunny won't hurt her when she's undercover. At an art exhibition, Gunny spots Aylin talking to some guests. He hands his glass to Vera and starts chasing after her. Aylin keeps greeting everyone till she stands alone to admire a painting. He calls out to her, and she acts surprised and cold when she notices him. He claims he looked everywhere for her, but she seems angry about him abandoning her. She acts like she has moved on and is unwilling to discuss their past. A man informs Gunny that Aylin is their exhibition curator. He claims she's managing a prestigious art gallery in Paris. Gunny learns from the man that she will be in town for 2 weeks. Gunny has pulled a few strings to find out which hotel she's staying at. She still claims to not be interested. He asks her for dinner and promises to back off if she doesn't like what he has to say. After playing a little hard to get, she agrees to have one meal with him. Gunny admits that he was scared of marriage and his love for Aylin. He didn't want to lose her, so he ran away. He was confused and was facing these emotions for the first time. She still thinks he ran away from her. But for him, it was like running away so he didn't have to deal with loving her so intensely. Aylin admits she loved him too, and was scared he will abandon her one day. It soon became her reality, and she went through hell for 6 months when she thought he was deceased. Gunny admits he regrets what he did, but he was very lost then. He tried contacting her when he came back to his senses, but she was long gone. He knows now that he wants her in his life, and begs her to give him a second chance. She's afraid he will disappear again, but he is confident of his love now. She agrees to give their relationship a chance if he promises to be honest. When Aylin gets back, she looks at the chart she has prepared to track his movements. Ozan finds out that Vera is the hacker Gunny is working with. Aylin gets jealous when he claims she's the most beautiful hacker he has seen. But they know Vera has a Spanish mother and a Turkish father. She started working with Gunny 3 years ago, when she arrived in Turkey. She has a criminal record in the past, but it's been clean for 3 years as she hasn't been caught yet. His other associate is Omer, and Aylin knows him as Gunny's chauffeur and accomplice for years. Ozan also finds out that Gunny met Omer and Vera in a warehouse after his meeting with Aylin. They realize the plans for the next heist must be in the warehouse. Ozan hopes they're not breaking into the warehouse, but Aylin disguises herself at night to enter the warehouse. She looks around till she finds some plans and takes pictures of them. When she tries to open a laptop, Vera holds a gun to her head. Aylin pretends to take off her mask, but knocks off Vera's gun. She keeps fighting till she finds something to hit her on the head. She then runs away to the car as Vera is passed out, but she has been hurt too. Vera is sure someone is onto them, but couldn't get a look at the woman. Vera thinks she could be with the police because she fought really well. Gunny thinks the police would have raided the place or placed the warehouse under surveillance. He doesn't believe an officer would sneak in like that. Since she didn't even notice Vera there, Gunny feels like it's a failed break-in attempt. When Aylin looks at the pictures of the plan, she realizes their next heist is in Prague. As they have dinner in Gunny's apartment, he keeps staring at Aylin with love. He doesn't want to be away from her, and hates that he needs to leave for Prague. She asks if she can come along, but he insists it's a stupid work thing she will hate. She still knows he won't work all the time, and asks him to make it happen. He agrees to figure something out. Gunny finds her asleep on the couch, and brings her back to his room. He takes off her shoes, and goes to sleep next to her. Aylin is wide awake, and waiting for Gunny to doze off. When she's sure he's sleeping, she walks down the hall to check her phone. She even looks around the house for a secret opening, and finds a door in the wall. She finds a portrait of herself that was made with Gunny when they were dating. She wakes up to an empty bed, and finds Gunny working out. She pretends to not know how she got to the bed from the couch. Their private jet for Prague is taking off in 2 hours, and he asks her to get ready. She thinks there's not enough time to go back to the hotel and get her stuff. He knows she has her passport, and already has a selection of dresses for her to choose from. Gunny introduces Vera as his assistant. Aylin confidently shakes her hand and sits down with Gunny. Vera thinks they might want privacy, and decides to join Omer. In Prague, Gunny brings Aylin to her room. He has taken the one next door, and wants to wait till she's ready to share a bed again. He asks her to settle in and meet him in an hour, since he doesn't have work that day. Outside the novel gallery in Prague, Vera rants about Aylin to Omer. He thinks Vera feels jealous since she might be in love with Gunny. Vera insists it's something else, because she thinks Aylin is the woman from the warehouse. She only saw her eyes, which seem very similar. Omer knows Aylin from the time Gunny was engaged to her. He thinks she's a great person, and reliable. Vera still thinks Aylin might want revenge after Gunny broke up with her. Omer just asks her to not mention all this to Gunny. Aylin loves their ride for the day, and wants to drive. They visit beautiful locations the whole day, and have a great time. Gunny has one more surprise, and asks her to pick out a special dress. Ozan is waiting in Aylin's room when she's back, since she wasn't responding to his calls. She thinks he's putting them at risk, because Gunny could have walked in with her. Ozan thinks she's falling in love with Gunny again, and will compromise their mission. The chief is also angry about them being off to an unapproved mission in Prague. He wants them back in Istanbul, but Ozan has managed to convince him. This is still their last chance to prove Gunny is the thief. If they can't, this case is over for them. Gunny brings Aylin for the Art of Love show. He knows she wants to see it, and remembers the promise he made to her when they were together. He wants to work harder to gain her trust again. Aylin feels strange they're the only people in the theater. They're watching the dress rehearsal, and the premiere is next week. Aylin thinks it's perfect, and means a lot more this way. As Aylin watches the show, Gunny keeps watching her. She thinks everything feels like a dream with him. She doesn't remember him being so romantic, but he claims it's because he found her again. She claims they met again by chance, but Gunny doesn't believe in coincidences. He insists he made sure he found her one more time. He drops her outside, but they start making out in the room. When things get too passionate, Aylin stops him. She thinks it's happening too quickly, and can't do this yet. He joins her in the morning, and she asks if he's heading out. He apparently has a meeting, and has arranged for a tour for Aylin. The car is waiting for her, and he promises to join if he gets free early. She follows him outside and gets into a car with Ozan. They follow him to the museum. She thinks he's covering his face with a cap to hide from the cameras. He suddenly disappears, and they spot two people who look like him heading in opposite directions. They check both sides, and hear an alarm. Both the men turn out to be dupes, and even the painting is missing. Aylin notices him leaving, and follows in her car. She chases him, but he enters a narrow street she can't access. Back in Istanbul, Ozan thinks Gunny is really smart for slipping through their fingers again. This was their last chance, but Aylin refuses to give up yet. The chief has forbidden them from pursuing this case, but Aylin is determined. She wants to go to a private event, and doesn't think Ozan needs to know the details. But if she's planning to pursue this lead, he can't let her do it alone. Gunny and Aylin enter the party, and he gives a background of Faisal Varley. Gunny is buying his company, and Faisal is very excited to see him. They're about to sign the deal the next day, and Faisal thinks he's a great person to work with. When Gunny introduces Faisal to Aylin, he is charmed by her. When he learns she's a curator at a gallery, he offers to show his collection of rare and unique art. Gunny wants to see too, and they follow him. Faisal asks them to turn around when he enters the passcode. He claims he spent more on the security system than the paintings inside. He has 78 cameras with motion sensors, so there's no blind spot. This leads them to an unbreakable titanium door, which deactivates when the lock is forced. It can only be unlocked with Faisal's voice and face recognition sensors. The voice recognition changes the random set of words every day, and it only recognizes Faisal's voice. He brings them in and asks them to turn before another vault. He's proud of his security system and the art collection behind the door. He shows them a painting which cost him a lot, but he thinks his art director scammed him with it. Aylin recognizes the painting as a Wassily Kandinsky original, but Faisal thinks it's a bunch of lines drawn randomly. Aylin whispers to Gunny that everything there seems to be stolen. Gunny wants Faisal to be their next target. Omer thinks he's joking, but Vera knows no one can change Gunny's mind. Omer reminds him Faisal will murder them if they get caught. Gunny admits this will be tougher than any other place they've tried before, but it's not impossible. He has already started planning. Aylin is sure Gunny will target Faisal next, and even knows the painting he will try to steal. This time, she wants to catch him. Gunny knows Faisal is hosting another event that weekend. He asks Omer to visit Faisal's dry cleaner to install cameras in the staff uniforms. Gunny plans to set up the dupe cameras like he always does. He informs them about the titanium door. Gunny knows they can get the random words in Faisal's voice from the recordings they get from the body cams. For the facial recognition, he asks if they have seen Mission Impossible. He plans to use a 3D hologram of Faisal's face. A Japanese AI company has already started designing it for him. They're about to get high-resolution images of Faisal's face from available footage. With this wearable 3D model of his face, Gunny knows he can easily enter. This technology has also been used to test the security of facial recognition software in many companies. Gunny enters with confidence, but Vera notices Faisal coming his way. She alerts him and asks him to head out, but he doesn't listen. As Faisal closes in, Gunny uses the recordings for the voice recognition. With the 3D hologram, he manages to enter just in time before Faisal comes to the corridor. Vera almost gives up, but comes back when she realizes Gunny is inside. As Faisal shows off to his guest, Vera still thinks there isn't enough time for Gunny to get out. Gunny tries to enter the passcode for the vault just when Faisal is about to enter. He unlocks it just in time again for Faisal to not notice. But there's no way out of there. As he stands in front of the painting, Vera is sure they're busted. But Faisal's security guard asks him to head upstairs, and they all leave. Vera thinks they randomly turned around and Gunny got lucky. But Gunny doesn't believe in luck, and starts unpacking the painting to leave the stone behind. Faisal's men found Aylin trying to sneak in through the garden wall. He recognizes her, and she insists someone is trying to steal from his vault. She refuses to admit how she knows that, so Faisal thinks she might be the thief. He asks to know who she is, and she shows him her badge. He wonders if Gunny knows she's a cop, and they plan this together. She assures him that Gunny has no clue, and she used him to access his property. She wants to go to the vault with him soon, but Faisal is still confident about how well protected his place is. He is sure whoever tries to breach will end up in his trap. He thinks Aylin might be after his illegal artifacts, but the security alarm on his phone beeps. He goes to check his vault and asks his men to not let her go. He finds out the painting is stolen and asks Aylin who did this. She claims she has no idea and only knows they were targeting Faisal. He doesn't believe her, but Ozan arrives with his team at the crime scene too. Faisal claims he didn't call them and asks them to leave if they don't have a warrant. Aylin takes her gun and badge back and leaves with Ozan. As Faisal asks his men to find the thief, Gunny rejoices with yet another victory. Ozan recognizes Faisal from the time he was in narcotics, and knows he deals in dangerous stuff like and murder. He asks Aylin to be careful and stay away from him. Aylin wakes up to find Faisal in her room, who thanks her in person for letting him know the thief is Gunny. She doesn't confirm it, but he knows from her defensive nature that it's him. Aylin rushes to his office and watches Faisal close behind them. The receptionist calls Gunny when Faisal and his men ask to meet him too. Aylin claims she has to share something important with Gunny, but he already knows she's working with Interpol and ran into him to catch him. He has known this whole time, and planned for her to find him. She asks why he set her up, and he admits he never ran away from her. He got caught and was arrested in Mexico after he left. It took him 6 months to get out of the prison, but he couldn't let anyone know what happened. He then staged a fake press conference and wanted to find Aylin after that. But she disappeared and he struggled to find her. When he finally did, he was heartbroken to learn she was working as an Interpol agent. She was in the art crimes unit, and he knew he couldn't introduce himself as the thief. He wanted to get a real chance with her, and made a plan so she would track him down. He wanted to know if she would still love him if she knew he was a thief. He left clues like that day in the museum, when he made sure she noticed him. He even knew she was sneaking out of the room that night. Omer also did some digging on Vera's suspicion. and they found out Aylin is an Interpol agent investigating them. Gunny already knew that, and asked his team to play along. Gunny also knew no one would believe Aylin without evidence. She feels hurt he was playing her, but he claims she also played him. As Faisal starts coming upstairs, she asks him to continue this conversation later. Gunny knows Faisal can't get to him in his own building, and is only trying to intimidate him. Aylin wants him to be careful because Faisal is dangerous and can catch up to him anytime. Gunny isn't too bothered, and asks what she has planned. She wants to go to the police, and he starts laughing. He claims he'll only go if she arrests him, but she doesn't have any evidence. She also refuses to leave him, because she feels responsible for Faisal. She claims she didn't give him up, but Faisal knew when he came to her hotel room. Gunny is more than happy to let her protect him, and claims they shouldn't go out of the door. As Faisal closes in on them, Gunny leaves with Aylin in his private jet. He shows her all the stolen art in a cabin, and hands over the evidence she was looking for. She wonders why he would keep priceless art like that in a cabin with easily accessible keys. Gunny doesn't care about any of it, and is glad there aren't any secrets between them anymore. She thinks this is all still a game to him, and he's not even taking his own life seriously. Gunny doesn't know what's in store for them, but he wants to enjoy every moment with her. He knows it's difficult to explain, but he wants to give a justification of why he steals. Gunny's grandfather from his mother's side was a painter, and his fascination of art came from him. They're sitting in his house, and Gunny used to watch him paint all the time as a kid. He was talented, but never got recognized like many other painters before him. He perished unfulfilled, but that's not exactly the reason Gunny started stealing. He remembers the first time he met Aylin, and she told him how Mona Lisa was only truly appreciated after it was stolen. As they admired Modigliani's paintings, Aylin admitted not everything he does is worthy to be a piece of art. She informs him that Mona Lisa's painting is only the highest priced and most famous after it got stolen. Before it was stolen, no one cared for it. Aylin refuses to believe she inspired him to be a thief, but there's more to the story. Gunny went through a phase in life when he didn't enjoy anything. He knows he sounds entitled, but having everything made him lose appreciation for life. He tried all extreme sports to find some thrill, but nothing worked. When he ran into Aylin, and she spoke about art's value, he knew that's the kind of adventure he wanted. He clarifies that he's not blaming her for making him a thief. He wants her to know everyone has a dark side, just like she showed hers when she broke into his warehouse. He claims he's not perfect, but points out he hasn't hurt anyone. Now that she has the evidence and the whole story, he asks what she wants to do. They hear gunshots, and know Faisal's men have found them. Aylin takes out her gun to defend them, but Gunny is more fascinated by how sexy she is. She keeps firing at them back, but Gunny wants to know the answer to his question. She drags him out of there, and reminds him this is not the time for jokes. Faisal asks his men to get both of them alive when he finds the hideout. Aylin is still engaged in the crossfire when Gunny keeps waiting for her answer. She drags him to an uncertain path, and they soon reach an end. He claims he wanted to warn her, but she never let him speak. Aylin is panicking about ways to get out of there, but Gunny wants to know if she still loves him. As Faisal holds them at gunpoint, they keep arguing and she insists she doesn't love him. Gunny asks Faisal to let them finish talking before he deals with him. Faisal keeps shooting near his ear, and Gunny's ear starts hurting as it almost misses him. Aylin begs Faisal to calm down and not hurt any of them. Ozan turns up there too, and asks his team to take Faisal away. Gunny had planned this too, and had copied some files when he was in Faisal's vault. He then met Ozan in secret and gave him the drive, in exchange for a favor. Ozan has wanted to arrest Faisal for a long time, and is glad he finally got the chance. Ozan always knew Aylin will get back with Gunny, and brags about how right he was. He claims he got Faisal, but wants to hand over Gunny's responsibility to her. Gunny has stolen some fancy art, but he still thinks he's harmless. He claims this is not his department, and asks Aylin to decide on the arrest. When he leaves, Aylin claims she's not going to turn Gunny in. He pretends to not hear her because of his ear and comes closer. She admits she loves him, and he's glad because he already knew. She also asks how it'll work between them, but Gunny knows they'll figure something out, and kisses her.